Another aspect that affects how justice is experienced depends on which values and knowledge you have, but also at what scale and time you're looking at it. This means that the notion of justice varies depending on where you're from. In this module, we have mainly been looking at how things are here in the Western culture and in the Netherlands. So, how do you see justice change from region to region?
Yeah, I would say that even across Western countries, we see huge differences. So I lived in the US. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I was trained here as an engineer, and then I spent total of 8 years in the US. And even looking at like the notion of energy justice here versus there, we see, of course, in the US, a history of race has really created very deep inequalities and inequities, also at the level of energy. But over there, also a broader notion of environmental justice is really central to how they're thinking about the energy system, or whether it's in politics itself or people fighting for justice on the outside. Yeah, so there are big changes, differences even across Western societies.
Yeah, maybe I can add to this that in countries like Latin America, where a priority is in growing and development, that goes at the cost of environmental justice, for example, where it doesn't become an important aspect in the agendas. And there are concrete examples, for example, in Chile, where I come from, areas where the installation of oil refineries and coal mines are helping, of course, to the growth of the country at the cost of communities having to be exposed to extreme contamination, which is decades and decades of injustice in the sense of not being able to address this type of issues for the sake of growth and development. Yeah.
Yeah, and based on my example or my research, both in Netherlands and in India, I see culture playing an important role in understanding of how energy system is, how we behave in energy system, and what justice means in that. To give an example, I've done research in very remote rural parts in India where off-grid, very in forests have been set up and they have been running there for decades, and villagers have been taking care of and to run those systems, something we would not entirely imagine that people managing the grid on their own. But what was even more fascinating to see is that their people's conception of energy was not that of a commodity. It was a shared resource, as they have food, water. And what it meant is they also related to energy very differently. They will manage energy and think about what is fair way to distribute energy on the notions of who is capable of, what the needs are. If there is a particular cultural festival or somebody being sick, so they will organize energy which benefits them. They will respond more collectively, and they will treat energy not something which is just only tied to monetary payments. And what we have in West often that we have an energy system where energy is a commodity, its price is tied to certain market mechanisms, and people have to pay for it. So energy is very singularly coupled with monetary mechanisms. While there, if you look into people relate to energy based on relationships and diverse needs of people, and so energy becomes a shared resource, and people think about fairness and justice varying according to who is capable with what capacities, and people respond to that. So culture plays a very important role, and also understanding that our notions of justice varies across cultures, and that's something which we have to give attention to and take into account when we are talking about energy justice.
It's interesting what you're saying, because I feel like back in the days here in the Netherlands, it used to be like that. We used to have local energy companies, though there might have been companies that were run by locals typically, right, and owned by municipalities and regional governments, for instance. And now we're entering a phase in the Netherlands with congestion, where energy suddenly, it was, let's say, an abundant resource for a long time, but it's not anymore. And we are seeing debates that I think may be really inspired by what you've observed and experienced yourself in India and elsewhere, to see how we can manage these new emerging forms of injustice, but also through hopefully the lens of solidarity and community.
Yeah, yeah. I think I completely agree on this, and I feel that by opening up, like even the first stance toward energy justice to open up to see other possibilities, and maybe from places which you do not traditionally would think that they can bring some inspiration, or maybe also looking back at history. Like for instance, the example
Yeah.
you gave about how things were organized, maybe there is a need to look back and look elsewhere as a way to understand justice in where we are now.
Yeah, that's very interesting to see how justice really differs from different regions. So it's really important to pay attention to these differences and keep in mind the local histories and the values and the lived experience that people have if we want to successfully implement it. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.